and we are going to begin a mimer about Mocher Chodesh, as the Kviyas and Tafshin Lamed when this mimer was said, was also like this Kviyas, where the next day was Rosh Chodesh, the day after Shabbos was Rosh Chodesh, and therefore we're reading the Haftorah of Mocher Chodesh. So the Haftorah is going to focus on that. The mimer is going to speak about this Haftorah, but interestingly, there's going to be some interesting chassidus pertaining to Nekudas, the vowel signs in Lashon Kodesh. Interesting topic that the mimer is going to end up talking about. Okay, so in the Haftorah from Mocher Chodesh, we read by Yehonathan that Yehonathan told David HaMelech, when they wanted to find out if David HaMelech had fallen out of favor with Yehonathan's father, with Shaul HaMelech, and they had made up a code between themselves that they would see what would happen. It was the next day was going to be Rosh Chodesh, and he would see what would be his father's reaction if David HaMelech didn't come to the meal, which he was usually invited. The king had a big meal, and they were invited for that meal. What would happen, and then he would send the arrows flying, and according to whatever Yehonathan would tell to his servant over there about looking for the arrows, that would be a code for David to know either he's got to go run or it's safe for him to return. So Yehonathan told David HaMelech, tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh, and you will be absent. Or you will be remembered because your seat will be empty because David HaMelech will not appear. And then after 3 days, you will conceal yourself for 3 days, and you will see. We will meet after 3 days during this 3-day period. After the 3-day period, so I can be able to let you know what exactly is the results of my finding about my father. And then I will throw these 3 arrows. I will shoot these 3 arrows, and this will be a sign. Like we said, they will make up a code based on what he was going to tell his youth to collect the arrows. So the Rebbe asks over here, we need to understand what is the exact idea over here about the number 3. So we see twice that the number 3 over here has significance. First of all, he tells them after 3 days of hiding, we will meet up, and then I will throw 3 arrows to be able to deliver the code. Also, the psukim that are prior to the Haftorah. In other words, the part that's not incorporated in the Haftorah, but it's part of the Navi, the story over there that happened. Yomer Yonathan said, I will try to figure out for my father on the 3rd day after. In other words, the 3rd day from tomorrow, the day after, and the day after that, I will try to figure out from my father what's going on. In the end, Shaul HaMelech was asking about David earlier than that, but in case David HaMelech, Shaul would not ask, so then on the 3rd day from tomorrow, we would try to find out. So also over here, there is this point of exactly saying 3 days later. That's when he's going to do it. So the Rebbe says there's a simple reason why 3 days later. It says Mashapirish Rashi, what Rashi explained, Shema lo yisma avi mocher. Perhaps my father will not wonder tomorrow where you are. He'll see you're absent. Okay, you're absent. And maybe not the 2nd day, he might not ask. In the 3rd day, he will ask, and that's why I will try to feel my father out to see how he feels about it. So the Rebbe says, it's not enough of an explanation of why Yehonathan gave David HaMelech 3 days to investigate it. From the continuation of the whole story that we see later on, we see that in actuality it was enough 2 days. What happened? Should be Yom Harishan, and the first day that David Melch didn't appear by the first day Rosh Chodesh, there was still a possibility that there was some excuse that Shaul said to himself, it's not a unusual thing that David is not here. When 2 days in a row David HaMelech did not appear, Shaul miyad madul loy ba ben Yishai gomer. So immediately Shaul asked, why didn't Ben Yishai come? So we see that 2 days were sufficient. So if 2 days were sufficient to have Shaul wonder and ask about David, and therefore to be able to determine what Shaul's view of David HaMelech was he aiming to kill him, or was he good with him? It would have been enough 2 days. So why did Yonatan say 3? So again, the point is this repetition of the theme of 3 a few times. Then he continues, also have to understand from the inner view of things. Why in general do we know in halacha and nigla that doing something 3 times makes it something that's established, makes it something that's solidified? The reason for this, that by nature 3 times is considered a powerful thing, a verified thing, is because so it is internally. In other words, the Rebbe says like this. You could say that logically it makes sense. 3 years, 3 times, this makes something established. But the reason why something in the physical world, down here in halacha, it becomes verified and established through 3 times, this is a result of the fact that spiritually it's so, that it in the spiritual realms 3 times is something that establishes and verifies something. So the question is, why is it so spiritually, which is the source and the reason why it is down here? So he goes on, nice base, line 18, this will be understood according to what's explained in Mamorim that begin with this Dvar Malchus, Mocher Chodesh. Especially in Eira Torah of the Samach Tzedek on this pasuk Mocher Chodesh, Shepirish V'Shil Lashtam, that he explains what does it mean. You will wait, you will hide for 3 days. Literally, you will 3. You will become 3. You will be 3. That's what V'Shil Lashtam means. You will triple. That's what it's brought down to Mamorim. That's what the Tzemach Tzedek says, that you will become a 3 thing like a segel, like the vowel sign of a segel. The explanation of this matter is that you will be for me a special thing, a nation that is special to me, or a treasure from all the nations that are upon the face of the earth. Pirush. So now he explains it very interestingly. Mikol ha'amim asher p'alpnei adama tasul imam sgula. From all the nations that are upon the earth, you will make for me a sgula. As we'll soon explain what that means. Ki mebirurim sha'osim Yisrael mikol ha'amim. Because through the refining of the sparks that we will make, and we make from all the nations, we turn it into a segal, as we will explain further on. Next page 12. Yes, Levayr b'Maimar Muzgar. Now the Rebbe says parenthetically, we could explain seemingly the question: what's this association? This Gula doesn't mean segal. Segal is one thing; it's a vowel sign in Lashon Kodesh, as Gula means a treasure, a precious thing, and so on, something special. So why am I putting it together? So the Rebbe is going to explain the principle that's we see in many things that the Rebbe says, that the very fact that these words have common letters, even though they may have totally different meanings, that means they're related. He says, "Shesgula hukmai segal," that the skula is just like a segal, the kivum the same shop. Since their letters are the same, this is an indication that the concept behind the word skula and behind the segal is one. As it's known, the name of anything that is called in the Lashon Kodesh language, corresponds to the root and the source that of the item that's called by this name, and that's why it is called by a particular name, because it indicates the spiritual source where it came from. The Indians, this idea of recognizing the source of the spiritual source of everything. I said, this was the great wisdom of Adam Arishon, that he was able to give names to all the creatures. What was the big deal? Seemingly, just pull a name out of your hat. If you tell a kid to go ahead and say, we're going to call a person by a certain thing by a certain name, he can make it up. What's the big deal? Still in all, over here, we said no. That wasn't the way Adam Rishon worked. Adam Rishon was proven that he was smarter than all the malachim because he was able to call them by name. Because he saw in everything its root in the supernal chariot, in the divine chariot. So too, it's from below to above. Adam Rishon worked from above to below. He looked at the animal, so he examined where this animal come from, its source in the supernal chariot. So he saw, an ox. It comes from Pnei Shorish of Merkava, from the oxen facing the Merkava. So he called the ox down here an ox. But in the by us, it works the other way around. That when we see an ox down here, and we know it's called Shoyer, so we know it's related to and comes from the Pnei Shorish of Merkava. This understood that when there's two names, meaning two words, that the letters of the words are the same, or at least the majority of the letters are the same. So that means the roots of the letters of the words are the same. Though in their external, meaning they're not the same. Like we said, Segal is a vowel sign. It's a pronunciation. Skula means something special, a treasure. Still in all, the fact that they are sharing the same letters, that indicates that they are connected to it in their, or they're associated in the root. Because when you look at the majority of the letters, so you look at the majority of letters, you see that the majority of the letters are a matter of the root of the word. Like, for example, any word has prefixes and suffixes and so on and so forth. So you look at the majority of letters to be able to determine, that's what he meant in the parentheses, to be able to determine that essentially the words are the same. Therefore, he says, line 14, they're associated one with the other in their root. Therefore, their letters are the same. Every letter is with a unique form and shape that indicates on the form and the type of drawing down and the revelation of the light and the life. The Alter Rebbe explains in Shara Yichud Ve'emunah, when he speaks about this idea about every word having a certain source above, every item having a source above, and it's expressed through the name. So he says that the design of each letter indicates a particular hamshacha that's coming from above. So that design is when you have multiple letters coming together to make a word with the similar designs, that means it's having hamshacha that has to do with a samach, and hamshacha that has to do with a gimel, and hamshacha that has to do with a lamed in both of these words. Combining all of them, the hamshacha of samach, gimel, lamed together. So therefore, they're related each to another. So now, once we've established parenthetically the idea that words that are similar to each other in spelling, even though they have different meanings, must have a connection. So now we're going to go back to what he was talking about before, that the Yisim Lisgula Mikola Amim is related to the Segal, which has to do with the number 3. Let's go in the second paragraph on page above, line 18. Mamshel Levi and the Tzemach Tzedek continues to explain. A segel has 2 dots that are next to each other, and then there has another dot underneath it. The lowest dot, the dot that's underneath the 2, shows on the level of bittul. Therefore, it stands below the letter. And this bittul transforms and elevates both of these points. Just like when you put something under something else, it's a support for the thing that's higher. The same thing over here. This dot under the 2 dots actually transforms the bittul underneath. Transforms. We'll soon explain why it needs to be transformed. It transforms the lower thing. It transforms the 2 dots and it elevates them. So first he has to explain what those 2 dots are that need to be transformed. So it says in line 22, the idea behind this is the 2 points on top, the 2 dots on top of the bottom dot of the segel indicates the world of Toyu, Sheboyash Rak Shnei Kav. Toyu, we say there's only 2 lines. It's a binary system, on and off, yes and no. And like he says, by Yimloch, the line of Chesed, the line of Gvura, by Yimloch, by Yamas. The very famous pasuk, the end of Parshas by Yishlach, it says, it enumerates over there, Elam Malachim Hashem Malchus Beretz Edom Lifnei Malach Malachim Yisrael. These are the kings that reigned in the kingdom of Edom. This is all symbolic of the spheros of the midas of Toyu. It goes through all 7 kings, and it says about them, Vayimlech Vayamas. So the simple thing that we say when we're enumerating those kings, he reigned and he died, that shows on the Shviras HaKelim of Toyu. Each Shvira was in the way of a king, very powerful, and then they had the opposition and the fighting with the other king, and they broke. Or in this mimer, he's going to emphasize that this binary 2-line system is indicated by Vayimlech Vayamas. Reigning shows on Hispashtus, the person is expansive. I'm a king, I'm reigning all over. That is the chesed aspect of the world of Toyu, the chesed line. Ayama, so when you're not Simpson, and he died, that shows on constriction and severity, because death is the opposite of any type of expansion, complete constriction. That's the idea of Gvura. So therefore, you have these 2 points of Toyu, the Chesed of Toyu and the Gvura of Toyu. And how does one elevate these 2 points of Toyu? That's through the 3rd point. The refinement of Toyu through Tikkun. In Tikkun, it's not like in Toyu where there's 2 lines, on and off, Chesed and Gvura, but there's 3 lines. Dugmas Sholosh Hanakudas the Segel, top of page Zion, similar the three lines in Tikkun, which is there's a right line of Chesed and a left line of Gvura and a center line having to do with Tiferes. That is similar to the 3 points of the Segel, the 3 dots of the Segel. So just like it is in the Nakuda of Segel, that the lower point, the bittel on the bottom, elevates and transforms the Toyu that the 2 dots on the top represent. So to v'cheinu be'inyan v'yisim l'sgula mekol ha'amim. So to it's concerning where it says that the Yidden will be a sgula from all the nations. Sgula h'maloshin segel. Sgula is from the same word like segel. Just stay on the kudais koyal b'chinas Esav v'Yishmael. The 2 points goes on the level of Esav and Yishmael. Seir, that Esav was the ruler of Har Seir, v'choisnoi, and his father-in-law. We know that one of the wives that Esav married was Basmas Bas Yishmael. So Yishmael was Seir's, Esav's father-in-law. So Sharshim Toyu, Esav and Yishmael are both rooted in the world of Toyu. These are the levels of Chesed and Gvura of Klippa. Yishmael, who in Ribuyai Spashtus Mitzala Chesed. Yishmael is the idea of the much expansion that comes out of Chesed. Let's remember, Yishmael was a child of Avram. So Avram was Chesed of Kedusha. It says Yotza Memenu came out and left the world of Kedusha and came about into the world of Klippa was Chesed, the Klippa, which is the level of Yishmael, it says. Yishmael is called Yotza Memenu, came out of Avram. But this is Spashtus of Chesed, is not a positive thing, but a negative. This is Chesed, the way it came down in a total and complete falling, meaning in Shviras HaKelim, like it says, the end of last week's parsha about Yishmael and his offspring, al pnei kol echav nafal. Before all of his brothers, or in the presence of all his brothers, he fell. The literal meaning in the pasuk, and the simple meaning of the pasuk is that he settled, etc. But al pi Chassidus, it means nafal from the word Shviras HaKelim. He fell low. That the chesed of Kedusha fell into Chesed Klippa. And the Rebbe says a very interesting thing. We know the famous story that the Malach went around shopping the Torah to different nations. And when he asked Yishmael about accepting the Torah, he said, I'm sorry, what does it say in it? It says, Loi sinov, do not commit adultery or niyuf, such types of crimes. So he said, I can't handle it. So he says, therefore he wasn't able to accept the command of the Aseres HaDibros of Lo Sinov, because that would mean that he would give up Chesed, Ava of Klippa, which is the idea of Niyuf, of the different types of prohibited relationships. That is Yishmael Chesed Klippa. Base of we not Tzimtzum HaGvura, it's his idea of Tzimtzum HaGvura, Shezau Winal Charbach HaTichya, that you will live by your sword. His whole idea was he was killing. That's Gvura. His entire being and his entire life and vitality is through the sword. So these are the 2 points. The 2 points on top of the Segel, the 2 nations. And these 2 points of Esav and Yishmael include all the 70 nations between the 2 of them. It's either they're in the line of Chesed or Gvura. That's why we find in the Zohar that there's the exile of Edom and there's the exile of Yishmael. Seemingly there was many more exiles, though there were more exiles. Edom Yishmael and close Kulam, because Edom Yishmael includes all of the exiles, because they are the 2 archetypes of the Chesed of Klippa and the Gvura of Klippa, and therefore they include all the 70 nations. So that is the 2 Nekudas on top of the Segel. comes now the Nekuda underneath by Nekuda Shalamato, in a bittul should be Yisrael, the point that the dot that's underneath the Segal, that's the bittul of the Yidden, Shal Yodai. Through that bittul of the Yidden, Mevarim Mahapkim Shtern Nekudas the Ches the Gvur on this Kors Laelf Yisal Lekdusha. We refine and we transform the 2 points of Ches the Gvura of Klippa that we mentioned previously, that they should go up to Kedusha. That's why it says, that from all the nations, you are making a segal, you are elevating it out of the Klippa. Any questions?